Before we dive into writing your actual query letter in Module 3, there's one more strategic element that we need to discuss, and that is timing. Timing matters more than you think. If you send your query at the wrong time, it might get buried under holiday backlogs or conference chaos. And if you send it at the right time, you can position yourself at the top of their inbox when they are actively looking for new projects. Let's talk about peak querying seasons first. January through March is great because you have fresh starts, new goals, and new year resolutions, including for agents who might want to break into a new genre or get new authors. September through October is also a really good time because everyone is back from summer. They are fresh off of vacation and gearing up for acquisition season. A moderate querying season could be April through May, which is manageable but steady. And you could try for November, but please be aware that it is getting busier at that time with the pre-holiday push. Slow querying seasons are June through August and December because of summer vacation and holiday chaos. You don't ever want to query an agent when they might be traveling. So if you know that they're going to a conference, don't query them in the few days leading up to the conference for the duration of the conference, unless you're physically there and they have asked you for a query after you pitch them in person. And also probably wait until a week after the conference so that they are settled at home and have caught up on their emails from when they were gone. Also, avoid major holidays and the weeks after those big holidays because there will always be something to catch up on and you don't want to add to that. The second Tuesday of January is actually a really good day, and doing earlier might be a problem because in my experience, a lot of people drag their feet on coming back to work, and the first week of January is pretty dead, which means that the second Monday of January is catching up on all of that, but the second Tuesday of January is about the first day that people are ready to look at something that wasn't built up from the holiday season. I mentioned not querying agents in the few days before a conference starts because they might be traveling, but you also don't want to query them in the 2 weeks or even 3 weeks prior because they are probably getting all their ducks in a row so that they can take the time off to go to the conference. But if you are querying an agent after a conference, like 1 to 2 weeks after it has closed and they are absolutely at home or at work and checking their inbox because they are energized and looking for new projects, you should absolutely reference that you saw them at conference and mention what they spoke about to prove that you didn't just see it online. Follow conference hashtags and social media accounts so you can see which agents are going and when the dates are for these events so that you can time your queries effectively. You don't want to do Fridays, especially Fridays after 3 p.m., because you are going to be catching agents who are trying to wrap up everything that they didn't get to earlier in the week before the weekend hits. If you query before 10 a.m. on a Monday, you're going to get buried along with the weekend email accumulation, and that is not where you want to be. Sunday and Saturday, the weekend, absolutely not. Even for agents who are workaholics like I am, want to know that you respect work-life balance. It is one thing for a publishing professional to not respect it themselves, but it's another for an author to say, I don't respect your time. The best date and time to query are Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. And I say Eastern because most of publishing is run on the East Coast in America. Now, if you are querying an agency in London, then you want to do it based on their time. The reason Tuesday at 10 a.m. is good is because agents are in the office. They are awake, theoretically. Maybe they have to get in at 8 and it takes them an hour to wake up, or they get in at 9 and then they have to get settled. But by 10 a.m., they are normally ready to go. And that is when you want an agent to read your query, when they are energized and also not in the middle of the day where they might be experiencing an afternoon slump or interrupting their deep work. There are some genre considerations throughout the year. For horror and thriller, August through October is really, really good because it's in the Halloween and spooky season lead up. But you could also do January, especially for thrillers. For romance, doing it in January and February is good because people are thinking about it, even though your book won't be published for at least 2 years. You could also do September for that. People tend to be thinking about school titles in January through April. And so that is a good time for young adult and middle grade fiction. But you don't want to do it during June through August when many agents have their own kids at home with them and therefore will want to be focusing on adult fiction more because they're having so much real life kid stuff. For holiday and seasonal books, you want to be querying at least 18 months before the holiday, which I know sounds crazy. It takes more than a year for your book to come out, but agents, editors, and bookstore owners are all planning each season at least 6 months in advance. So if you query your book a year before you want it to be published, which would probably never happen to begin with, you're cutting it really close because that is a short amount of time to get the book ready to then be included in planning. So that 18 months, while it sounds crazy, actually is very important. Debut novels can be very good from September to October because it is fall acquisition season, but is actually spring publication planning. It is planning for the first titles of the next year. So that is a great time to query a debut novel. And then if you would like to query in January or February, as long as it's not the first week of January, like I mentioned, that is also a good time because that is when publishers are planning for fall publication. And that is also a huge season in publishing. In fact, I would maybe say that fall publishing is bigger than even spring publishing. But remember that everything that I just said are tendencies and not rules. And one time that you can absolutely break all of those timing rules is if you get an offer from an agent and need to let the other agents who you have queried with the same project know that there is a deadline or there is interest. But we've talked about what you need to consider for the publishing industry when querying and the calendar. But you need to think about your own life too. Do not send a query when you are not going to be able to respond. So if you're going through a crisis, have major work deadlines, or are about to go on vacation, which hopefully is a happier reason to not be responding to your emails, then don't send an email. Because if you miraculously get a response while you are away from your computer and you don't respond within the 24 to 48 hour window that most agents expect from an author, you could be missing an opportunity. You're also only going to want to query on good days because if you're querying when you're not feeling confident about your work, that could shine through, and you want to build in recovery time in case you get rejection or silence or even get stressed out by a request for material. You also want to build in time to revise your query and materials if you want between batches. And I recommend you not do a batch larger than 8 queries at a time. And you don't want to send them all on the same day. So even if you do decide to send 8 queries in a week, you would maybe do 2 per day or 3, and 2 so that you're staying within Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so you're avoiding the Monday and Friday hangups that I mentioned. Like I mentioned, you want to plan your follow-up dates before you send the query so that you are not affected by whatever emotions are going through your mind at the response or lack of response that you have gotten from a specific query. Other times that you should never send are things that are outside of people's control. So if there is a major crisis of any kind, you don't want to send a query because you will be lost in the shuffle. Also, don't send a query during major life events. This could be positive or negative, But you don't want to potentially ruin a positive event by introducing something that could go badly. And like I said, you don't want to send something when you're not feeling good, because that can be communicated in energy, even if you don't believe in the more spiritual aspects of things. But if you do believe in that type of stuff, you also want to avoid Mercury retrograde. Not that I have any proof that it actually matters. And if an agent announces a closure to queries, you should not be emailing to get in right at the end. If they've announced it, it means the window is closed, at least for now, and sending it after you've seen that announcement proves that you don't respect their boundary. We talked about ranking your agent choices, and I want you to take a calendar, mark out all the days you're not supposed to be querying, highlight the peak times that I've mentioned, and then also in yellow, mark the moderate times for querying, then rank them based on that. Dream agents should go into peak querying times, good fits should go into moderate times, and long shots or safe bets or any other agent that you're wanting to query can be queried at any time as long as it is not during the no periods. Like I mentioned before, you want to block out time to respond to rejections personally. And I don't mean respond as in writing back an email. I mean taking it in and processing it emotionally, because if you respond emotionally, then that can professionally torpedo your career. You're also going to want to build in celebration time for when you do get a request, but also know that can introduce some anxiety, and build in breaks to avoid burnout and revision time as well. Lastly, make sure you build in flexibility into your schedule. Things happen to agents, publishers, and you. So anything can happen, and you need to be okay with that. You also could see an opportunity online and want to be able to pivot immediately to latch onto that opportunity. So flexibility is important. Your homework for this lesson is to create your personal query calendar for the next 6 months. Like I said, mark the red flag dates or no-go areas, highlight the good times and the okay times, and start planning your submission timeline. We have finished the second module, and our next module is going to be starting the query letter. I hope you're excited. It's going to be a deep dive on how to write the all-important query letter. And then later in that module, we'll also be talking about synopses. So if you are anxious or excited or both about those things, don't worry. I'm going to be here to help you finish building the best query submission package you possibly can.